All right, we're live. Peace, everybody. This is DJ Radon at TTM Academy. Please feel free to like and subscribe. Now, this is for my TTM Academy students. This lecture is going to be purely like a mathematic music lecture. I've been doing some social studies and different electives and things like that, different lectures and different subjects. But today we're going to be talking about Nassim Haramein's mistake. So we're going to be calling out his mistake. He's a well-known physicist, vortex mathematician, and if anybody is familiar with already what I've been doing over the past decade as far as vortex mathematics, you've seen the vortex vinyl and a lot of different other things that I've created. So today we're just going to call out an error, a very, very big error that Nassim Haramein made, as well as some other stuff. All right, so let's start. All right, so I'm going to flip around. All right, so let's go to here. All right, let me flip around. All right, so we're flipping around. All right, so this is Nassim Haramein, and he is a very well-known, sacred geometry kind of physics guru. This is his academy, Resonant Science Foundation. So I found a mistake. A bunch of his students had pointed out a mistake too. So he posted this musical spiral of frequency, color, and light universal tuning chart. And this thing is cool in here, like the 432 hertz. We know that that's a more, as far as cymatics, the 432 hertz is a lot more better frequency. It makes a 432 as far as A. But 432, the hertz that are, more conducive to the human body. Because when you do the cymatics of these different frequencies in hertz, what happens is some of them are more balanced and some of them are more unstable. So, they found that, this particular 432 tuning is stable and great for the human body, right? So, but this isn't about cymatics. This is about this actual graph. So what he made this chart right here, and I've called it out. That's why I put a big X here, big no, right? Because this chart says, so he says, apologies, here's the correct image for the post. And this was a correction of another post he made, but this whole post is actually wrong. And the reason it's wrong is it's wrong for a number of reasons. And I'm going to read all those reasons. All right. So, so you can see here, he has this first C, right? It says 252. It says 252 hertz, 0 degrees, right? But then if you go to the next C right here, it says 502 hertz, right? But remember that anytime you go from C1 to C2, it should be 1 octave up, right? And that's going to be twice the speed. So if the speed here is going to be 252 hertz, then this next C up is going to be, it should be 504 hertz, but he has 502 hertz. And then if you kind of zoom in even more, and you go to the next C up, it's hard to see in this one, but I think he has like 1,000 hertz. And this graph was created by a gentleman named Xinhui Zhang, and it says spirit-like arc. All right, so this whole graph is totally off because anytime you go 1 octave, it's better to think of an octave as a actual one whole revolution, right? And you get back to your starting point, you get back to where C is. But in here, they have C coming at around 180 degrees, even though they call it 0 degrees, right? And then they're not counting all the other degrees. This is the real spiral. This is the real one. So I posted this to refute his thing, because this, you can find these on the internet. You can find these anywhere, right? This is the periodic table of elements as a spiral as well. So you can do that with elements as well, like different elements or different octaves of other elements, right? And you would think that he's a vortex mathematician. He should know this, but you see all these sacred geometry things. I'm gonna flip back. So like if you go on the internet, you type sacred geometry, you see all types of sacred geometry, stuff like that. And a lot of times, people just, post it and forward it and assume that it's real. Like, oh yeah, this links up with that. And look, this is, they'll put a Merkaba over this and they'll put a pyramid over this. And, but see, a lot of that stuff is people haven't done the actual mathematics behind it to see if it's real or not. So today I actually, did the mathematics and I'm going to be proving Nassim Haramein wrong. All right. So let's look at this. So we're going to go through, I'm going to read this. So Nassim Haramein, your post is completely wrong. Oops, this is an older one. is completely wrong regarding the mathematics of musical octaves and their 12 half steps. So I've done the proper calculations for your learning center so that your students won't spread the false chart you've posted by Xinhui Zhang. You, being a vortex physicist, should have known that the 12 half-step octave scale follows a conical spiral as seen in the two charts on the bottom, not your Zhang's incorrect image of the Nautilus shape. So he used the Nautilus shape to try to describe how the 12 steps, the 12 half steps of an octave fall about, but really this is the actual chart. It does spiral, but it spirals in a conical, in a vortex type of way. So if you were to keep going upwards, it kind of, you could either make this into a cylinder, or you could make this into like a cone shape, kind of like the Tower of Babel. And I'll show a picture of that in the enhanced version. And so to my friend that down here, I think I posted some other ones. So I'll show you some other ones before I didn't post it on this one. I'll pull those up in a second. All right, but let me finish what I was reading. All right, so let me go back. So this is my response to Nassim Haramein. This is Nassim Haramein, and I'm correcting his errors, his mathematic errors, because there's a whole bunch of errors on this, right? And even some of his students corrected the errors, right? So this first student, they're just talking about the actual A being at 440, how most synthesizers have A at 440, but we know that through cymatics, people say that the Nazis actually instituted that 440 at A. But we know that the 432 hertz A creates a stable cymatic shape instead of like one that has a lot of distortion and it doesn't make like a perfect shape. Because every hertz is different. Every hertz makes a different cymatic shape. But all these numbers in here, these are all wrong. So that's what I'm going to be talking about today. All these numbers he has in there are wrong. The lengths of these things aren't necessarily wrong, because if you have C, right, and it's that long, and then you have C that's half as long, and these were strings, and you're going to pluck them, then that would be right? But the way that he has these arranged with all these numbers and 33 degrees, that's fake, and 49, all these hertz and all that stuff, that's all fake. So I'm going to finish reading this. All right. So let's see. So Nassim and Zhang's errors. Okay. So one full octave up is always twice as fast as the original note. Some of your students were able to pick up on that on the first mistake. That's what I was talking about right here. So some of his students were able to pick up on it right here. They said, like, hey, this looks wrong. Like what I was just saying before. It says some of the students picked up on that. It says it's an octave. It shows 502 hertz. I thought it should be 504, which they're right? Because if you have C at 252 hertz, then the next octave up should be exactly twice that, right? It should be 504 hertz, not 502. So this guy, Zhang, that made this post on 3/22/2015 was totally off. This whole chart, it looks nice, it looks pretty. And that's the thing. You go on the internet, you see a lot of pretty stuff, a lot of pretty, sacred geometry stuff. But, a lot of this stuff is just, kind of random, just thrown together, kind of quickly thrown together to make stuff look cool. And people don't question it because they don't know the math behind it. So today we're going to break down the math behind it and show why this is totally wrong. This Nautilus model of the pitch octaves versus the actual real model of the pitch octaves, the spirals. And another thing that's arbitrary too is the actual colors. These colors don't mean anything, because you can apply a color to a certain pitch, but there's no fixed color that goes with a specific pitch. Same with chakras, and I'll be talking about that in this lecture. So hopefully this will be a quick lecture. All right, especially because I have it all written down already. All right, so one full octave up is always twice as fast as the original note. Some of your students were able to pick up on that on the first mistake. That C1 being 252 hertz should be a C2 of 405 hertz, not 502 hertz. And the C3 should be 108 hertz. 1,008 hertz, not 1,000 hertz, because they rounded it off. You can't round these things off. It messes things up, right? Point number one, right? So point number two, that was his first mistake, and his students found his first mistake, right? And he never replied to them. All right, now the second mistake Nassim Haramein made is number two. I'll read it out. Yet the entire chart is off because it omits all the degrees beyond 90 degrees and 360. So this chart shows a full octave being complete at 180 degrees, which is totally wrong. So we have C here, this is C1, and this is C2, but you see C2 is at 180 degrees, right? So this is 0 degrees, and this is all the way over, this is 180 degrees, right? And that's off. It has to be 360 degrees like this. The next C is always going to be 360 degrees. See how they have, right, 512, 1024. They're, every C, all the C's are lined up, but these aren't lined up, right? Okay. All right. So next, yeah. So let me start back. So this chart shows a full octave being complete at 180 degrees, which is totally wrong. Thus, the Nautilus shell doesn't apply here. A spiral vortex is thus the correct mathematical model seen in the real note spiral at the bottom of the image, as well as the periodic table of elements spiral right next to it. Like I was saying, that's this one, right? And this one, all right? All right, let's see. Since you're a scientist of vortex mathematics, you should have been able to easily see this. This chart you posted is already in the Google image sphere, which will only serve to confuse more people in the future. So correcting this is important by deleting the false information. So right now, if you do a Google search on like on a pitch spiral, and you type pitch spiral, like, this will come up, but this will also come up too, right? Because he's got, like 700,000 followers. And people just like it and they think it's real because they just assume like, hey, he sounds like he knows what he's talking about, but people aren't actually checking the real mathematics behind it. So we're going to do the actual mathematics. Right here, I did all the mathematics this morning, right? So you can see what the real numbers are, right? Because all these numbers are fake. This is all fake, all right? So that was point number 2, right? Now, so number 3, since we can define C as a different number of hertz depending on the tuning, it means that the 12 steps are mere ratios and not a fixed number, nor do they have a fixed relationship with color. So all the sacred geometry charts people see on the net where this says this note equals this color is wrong. Thus, the colors of the notes are completely arbitrary based on what color or what note one starts at. They can all be shifted, aka transposed, all right? So that means that anytime you see a chart where it says, well, C is this color and E is this color, or that's all arbitrary, you could shift, you could shift the color wheel and you can shift the pitch wheel to however you want. The pitch wheel and the color wheel don't have a innately locked in thing because you can tune it in different ways, right? And that's what tuning is about, right? Just the same way that some people, the better tuning of A is at 432 hertz. Other people tune it at 440 hertz. So it's just like, where does the color red start and where does the color, orange end? It's like right here we see a clear thing, but if you merge them together and you have one of those blurry charts, it's all kind of subjective. All right. So that's point number 3, is that the alignment of these things are arbitrary, but people will look at it and it'll be like, wow, this is all mystical. And, they'll think that this, it really is aligned. And I'm not saying that that color doesn't have octaves. Color, may have octaves, but we only can see one actual visual spectrum. So that's a whole nother lecture, whether color has octaves, above the in the infrared and in the ultraviolet, and then even beyond microwaves, radio waves, because this is just the visible light spectrum that he's linking up with this, but obviously it goes way beyond that. So maybe beyond the visible light spectrum, there might be, other octaves, or there just might be new colors, but we can't see those colors. So we can only, talk about them mathematically, right? But we experience those colors via radio waves, the ultramagnetic spectrum and whatnot. So let's read number 4, his number 4 mistake. This is the number 4 mistake of Nassim Haramein. All right. So trying to link the notes with a certain chakra is also arbitrary, because C is not the first note. It's just an arbitrary first note some monks chose way back. Every scale starts with a different note, and it doesn't have to start with C. So the top chakra being represented by purple has nothing to do with C, right? and it has no innate connection on a mathematical level with the crown chakra. So I've been seeing people assume that there is some innate color to note correlation for decades by teams of faux new age posts that look cool but are unchecked. All right? Right, all the degrees and hertz and all that stuff, that's all totally wrong. All these numbers are wrong. And it was, you know, a good attempt. They tried, but it was wrong. So, and this is the correct model. And I'll show you some other versions of this same thing. But that's why I put yes, this is the correct model. Put the yes check mark, right? And this is yes check mark. This is the same type of model, but with the periodic table of elements, right? Okay. So yeah, so this musical spiral is totally wrong. So all right, now so here's the actual math that I calculated for you in the image to the far left. So that's this right here, and we're going to look at that right down here. All right, tagged a bunch of people. All right, so the real math is 360 degrees divided by 12 half steps equals 30 degrees. So that means 30 degrees for each new step. So for those who don't know what a step is, one octave going from C to the other C, you can divide that into 12 half steps. Right? And a half step is just moving up one key in the keyboard, right? So we've got a keyboard right here, right? This is the keyboard right here. And so let's say you're starting at D right here, you know, and then you can go up and you get to the next D. So, you know, that's what's called an octave, right? Okay. Now, so let's see. All right, so let's go back to where we were. All right, so that's the basic equation. So if 0 degrees is C1, right? This is C1 at 0 degrees, like how they have here. This is 0 degrees. We're going to make this 0 degrees right here. That's 0 degrees, right? So we're going to go 0 degrees right there. Even though it's 270 degrees, we're just going to rotate everything and say that this is 0 degrees, right? And then the next one up is going to be 30 degrees. And then add another 30 degrees, and you add another 30 degrees, and you add another 30 degrees, and another 30, all the way until you get to 360. All right, so we're going to look at this. All right, I'm going to read this out. So, all right, so 0 degrees is C1, or the original sound, before being transposed. And so the equation is the note degrees equals 30 degrees times the step number. All right, so the first half step will be 30 degrees times the step number, or 30 degrees times 1, which equals 30. So that's the first step. So we just went one step up to C sharp, right? So that's going to be right here at 30 degrees, right? But this thing isn't 30 degrees. Notice that? See how he says 13 degrees, right? And that's false, right? Because the next step up is going to be 30 degrees, right? He has it at 13 degrees, all right? All right. Now the next one, okay? So, all right, so it's 30 degrees times the step number. All right, so now we're about right here. I'm just going to read this whole thing and then I'm going to do it. I'm not going to go back and forth. So the first half step will be 30 degrees times the step number, which equals 30 degrees times 1, which equals 30 degrees, since it goes from 0 to 30. So we will call that C1, C1 sharp, right? So that's C1 sharp. The next will be C1 plus 30 degrees times 2, or 0 plus 30 plus 30 equals D1, right? So that's the D1 key, right? I'm showing you all the D key right here. Some little dog in between the two in the little house. So people say to remember it sometimes, right? The D key. I personally think that the letters need to be written on the actual keys. All right. Now, all right, so that's the D key. All right. So the D is 60 degrees, right? We have that right here. D is at 60 degrees. So if we're starting here, at 0, D is at, this is 60 degrees. And now what's the next one? We see that this one's going to be 90 degrees for D sharp. So let's look at here, right? So, so if you see, it says, so the same equation, n degrees, or note degrees equals 30 degrees times the step number. So D1 sharp is 30 degrees times 3, which equals 90 degrees, right? And we showed how that links up. E1 would be 30 times 4, which equals 120 degrees. F1 would be 30 times 5, which equals 150 degrees. F1 sharp would be 30 degrees times 6, which equals 180 degrees. And look, so we see his F is all the way at 77 degrees. It's totally off because he's adding by 13 every time. I guess they just felt that that 13 number was a mystical thing and they wanted to put it in 13 and be like esoteric or something. But this is all mathematic. This isn't esoteric. This is real science, right? So none of this, what I'm doing today is esoteric. This is actual, calculations, right? Okay. And none of this is like, coming from, a non-mathematic place. All right. So yeah, we see that. So 180 degrees right here. We got F sharp right there. 180 degrees. You get to F sharp, right? Okay. So we just had 180 degrees, right? So G1 is 30 degrees times 7, which equals 210 degrees, right? G1 sharp is 30 degrees times 8, which equals 240 degrees. A1 is 30 degrees times 9, which equals 270 degrees. A1 sharp is 30 degrees times 30 degrees times 10, which equals 300. All right. And I skipped this one. I skipped A1. A1 equals, I skipped a whole row. So let's see. Yeah, G1, I'm going back to right here, right? G1. So G1 sharp is 30 degrees times 8, which is 240. A1 is 30 degrees times 9, which is 270. So that's right here. 270 is exactly right here, exactly pointing down, right? That's where A starts, right? Everything lines up. See, I did the mathematics and I didn't even have to look at it. I did these mathematics without looking at that spiral because when you know the equation, you can figure it out, right? It's a very, very simple equation. 30 degrees times the number of steps. All right, very, very simple equation, and I'm surprised that he got this totally wrong. All right, so let's go back to 270. A1 equals 30 degrees times 9, that's 270. A2 sharp equals 30 degrees times 10, that equals 300 degrees. B1 is 30 degrees times 11, and that equals 330 degrees. All right, C2 comes a full circle, and that's 30 degrees times 12, which equals 360. So we return back to C, all right? Now for the next octave, all right? So that's 360. So I wrote, which completes the circle, and it keeps continuing from there. Voila, problem solved. The next octave would be C2 equals 30 degrees times 12, which equals 360, right? That's where we got the full circle. 2 equals 30 degrees times 13, which equals 390 degrees. D2 is 30 degrees times 14, which equals 420 degrees. D2 sharp is 30 degrees times 15, which equals 450 degrees. I forgot to say that this C was sharp, but you see the little sharp symbol. For people that don't know, that little number symbol, it means sharp, right? And those are the black keys in the keyboards, right? Okay, now, so D2 equals 30 degrees times 15, which equals 450 degrees. E2 equals 30 degrees times 16, which equals 480 degrees. F2 equals 30 degrees times 17, which equals 510 degrees. F2 sharp equals 30 degrees times 18, which is 540 degrees. G2 equals 30 degrees times 19, which is 570 degrees. G2 sharp equals 30 degrees times 20, which equals 600 degrees. A2 equals 30 degrees times 21, which equals 630 degrees. A2 sharp equals 30 degrees times 22, which equals 660 degrees. B2 equals 30 degrees times 23, which equals 690 degrees. And lastly, the next octave up is the C3, which is 30 degrees times 24, which equals 720 degrees. Right? And we're done. So that totally debunks this whole chart by Nassim Haramein from the Resonance Science Academy, right? And they thought they verified this because they had posted another one, and this was the link that was in another one, and he was saying that this is the correct one, but it's actually not correct, right? So this is the actual correct one, right? This is what's correct. That's why I put the check mark there, right? So, and you can find this on the internet, but you see, this one's on the internet too, so that all this false information can get people confused, right? Okay, so that's it. That's pretty much it for today. Now, so then there's a whole nother level to this, Another reason, the actual original reason why I was researching and double checking some of Nassim Haramein's work is because of the fact that he is part of a white supremacist movement that that is, trying to, like the ancient alien, blue-eyed Nordic aliens built the Egyptian pyramids. He's on that team, right? And I'm going to show you all that if you go to his website, he doesn't have any quotes by any black scientists or anything like that. He has, he actually has this on his page, and I actually called him out years ago. What was this, 2015? All right, so I said, let's see, sup Kichi, sup Ornate Coltrane, sup Imani Inami, and all my Facebook homies. I'm deleting Nassim Haramein as a Facebook like. I've always had a feeling he was pushing Aryan power whitewashing of history, but with this new post, it's very clear, and I'm not offended by the ancient swastika, simple mathematics, just that he colored them all blue and their eyes blue, and is asserting that an ancient blue-eyed Aryan master race created all of these works, when we have scientific evidence that the first blue eyes only dates to about 7,000 years ago, really 6 to 10,000, genetically, to an African person living in Spain. That's why the blue paint, the only blue paint to survive on these ancient relics, I'm screenshotting this BS. Nassim is not on our team for sure. If you click the Atlantean Africans with blue eyes on it, number 1, and then it goes on saying a white master race even was responsible for ancient American achievements. Luckily, the Kenwick man found in North America was just found to be 100% non-European. For years, they tried to say the Kenwick man was a white man, and the Europeans started American civilization. The natives weren't even given rights to his remains, since the racist archaeologists of the past had deemed him an ancient white man. So this is what Nassim was posting, right? He was posting and he doesn't even show the Ethiopian swastikas and the Nisbiti swastikas, and the swastika is an ancient black symbol, right? And then it became an ancient Asian symbol, because most of the symbols that we have in humanity, most of those black people have been here hundreds of thousands of years before everybody else. So we've pretty much created all the symbols that are out there. But you see, what he's trying to assert is that a blue-eyed master race founded all of these civilizations. So he's basically going into Nordic alien territory, right? So he's basically a proponent of, he's one of those ancient alien people where they alien wash black history. They're like, no, black people didn't build these things, or some Asian people didn't build these things. These are all, aliens. Indian people didn't build that. It was aliens, right? So he's saying that, some of these are totally painted on. A couple of these might actually have blue eyes, like different renderings, but, this is just falsifying history, right? So he's got the Aztec swastika, the Greek one, Hindu, Celtic, the Hopi, China, Japan. Notice how he leaves Africa out here. It's Islamic, Tibet, right? He's leaving all those out of there, right? So let's actually click on, I'm going to click on this. I'm going to click on Nordic aliens. Right, a lot of people believe in this. People believe that there's Nordic aliens, and you go to Wikipedia. Wikipedia has Nordic aliens. So there's whole worlds of these people that believe that there's Nordic aliens, and he's on that tip. So that's why I'm exposing him for having fake sacred geometry. I just did the mathematics and debunked his fake sacred geometry, and that's it. So that was a quick lecture. Got that done pretty quick. So yeah, so I debunked Nassim Haramein's fake mathematics, and I exposed his, purporting of, blue-eyed people starting all the civilizations, even though blue eyes is a new thing, and they've just proved that blue eyes occurred in a black person living about 6 to 10,000 years ago. So, lastly, I just want to leave it on that note that this is at you, Nassim Haramein. You can't take our sacred geometry from us. All these ancient African things, I see the tree of life on your, not the tree of life, the circle, sacred circles and all these different things like that, like just like how they take the wisdom of Tahuti and the 9, principles of the Tahuti, and they knocked off, 2 of them for their, their own charts, their fake Gnostic charts and stuff like that. So, there's a lot of stuff on the internet. And let me see, I'm just going to show this one last thing. This kind of relates too. So I'm going to flip back around. So this is like one of my vortex charts. I'm a, vortex mathematics, specialist. I've been working on vortex mathematics. This is a vortex chart. Nobody's ever made a tool like this. This is a BPM protractor where you can find the speed of a record, but just by measuring the distance of 1 quarter note. But this, this goes beyond turntablism. You can use this in physics, science, all different types of things. All right, so let me show this. So this is this is a pitch chart I did actually on the matrix. Any of you all that own the periodic matrix of scratches, you can find this in that. And yeah, and that's it. So this has like a bunch of translations, kind of like what I did today, but this one is more relating pitch to slope, right? And you can see, so I have it all lined up there, right? So these are real calculations, real mathematics. These aren't just like fake sacred geometry memes, because that's a whole big thing, all these sacred geometry memes, right? So this is what the real, spiral should always look like, right? So what he was showing was fake, that whole Nautilus thing. This is what it really looks like. C should always be lined up, right? C is always, each octave is always going to be lined up, right? So we have a C here, we got C, we got another C, the higher C up, another C higher up. The octave should always be lined up, right? And his octaves weren't lined up. That's why it was fake, and that's why I had to expose it. I was like, wait a minute, that doesn't look right. All right, I was looking at that this morning, so I did all the calculations to just prove it. So there we go. We just debunked Nassim Haramein, and we exposed his kind of white supremacist, or not even kind of, literal white supremacist theory of blue-eyed people being the fathers of all civilization, right? Okay, great. So we see that right there. So, all right, and that's it. So I'm gonna flip around. All right, peace.